Right now, on this planet, there are skills that exist inside exactly one human brain. Not one company, not one country, one person. When that person dies, the skill is gone. Permanently, forever, erased from the human record as completely as if it never existed. We're not talking about being really good at something. We're talking about knowledge so rare, so tied to a single individual, that the entire rest of humanity combined cannot do what that one person does. Some of these people know it. They've dedicated their lives to keeping something alive. Others just kept doing a thing they loved while the world quietly stopped. And in a few cases, the person holding the skill doesn't even want to pass it on. They've decided the knowledge belongs to the ocean or to no one. These are those people. Let's go. The woman who makes silk from the sea and has taken a sacred oath never to sell it. On a tiny island off the coast of Sardinia, there is a woman named Chiara Vigo who makes fabric out of clam filaments and has given away every single piece she has ever made for free. The material is called byssus. It's a golden silk-like fiber secreted by a giant Mediterranean clam called the pinna nobilis. In the ancient world, this fabric was worn by pharaohs, Roman emperors, and, according to Chiara, King Solomon. It's mentioned dozens of times in the Bible. A pair of gloves made from it was said to be so fine it could fit inside half a walnut shell. The process of making it. Chiara dives to collect the raw fibers without harming the living clam. She soaks them in a mixture of 8 seaweeds for 25 days, changing the water every 3 hours. She combs them by hand. She spins individual threads 1/3 the thickness of a human hair onto a spindle made from oleander wood. Then she weaves the thread on a loom that has been in her family for over 200 years. To gather 200 grams of raw material, she dives approximately 300 times. She is, by every documented account, the last person alive who can do this at the level of a true master. Fashion houses have offered her fortunes. Art dealers have descended on her island with checkbooks. She has turned every single one down because Chiara took what she calls the Sea Oath, an ancient vow inherited alongside the skill itself. The byssus cannot be bought or sold. It belongs to the sea and to whoever needs it. In 54 years of work, she has produced exactly 198 pieces. One tie for her husband took 7 years. A reproduction garment for Israeli archaeologists took 5 years and is the size of a smartphone. Her pieces are in the Louvre, the British Museum, and the Vatican. She has never made a penny. Her door is always open, as long as you're not in a hurry. There's a sign on the door that says exactly that. The man whose hands are so precise, he redefined how we measure a kilogram. In a workshop in Australia, there is a craftsman named Achim Leistner who can make something no machine on Earth can replicate: a perfect sphere. Not a very round sphere. A sphere so geometrically perfect that its deviation from a mathematically ideal ball is measured in nanometers, billionths of a meter. If you scaled one of his spheres up to the size of the Earth, the tallest mountain on its surface would be about 6 feet high. He does this by hand, with his fingers. The process takes months. His fingertips are so sensitive they can detect molecular-level irregularities that no instrument can identify in real time. He describes the work as massaging atoms, knocking a few off the surface at a time, then feeling with his hands whether the result is closer to perfect. Why does this matter? Because scientists needed a sphere of pure silicon so geometrically flawless that they could count the atoms inside it, and use that count to redefine the kilogram based on a universal constant, rather than a physical lump of metal locked in a vault in France. Leistner was the only person who could make it. He has never found an apprentice. People have tried to learn. None have developed the sensitivity in their hands that he has. A calibration built over an entire lifetime, stored in his nervous system, impossible to transfer through instruction. When he retires, that sensitivity ends. No machine replaces it. The skill lives in one person's hands, and nowhere else. 3. the 107-year-old woman who tattooed warriors and made the cover of Vogue. High in the Cordillera Mountains of the Philippines, in a village called Buscalan that takes 15 hours to reach from Manila, lives a woman named Wangod Ogay. She is 107 years old. She has been tattooing since she was 15. Wangod is the last mambabatok, the last living practitioner of the traditional Kalinga tattoo art called batok. No machines, no needles. She uses a thorn from a citrus tree dipped in charcoal water, taps it into the skin with a bamboo stick, dot by dot, the way it was done by her people for hundreds of years. These were warrior tattoos. Male headhunters earned specific patterns as proof of combat. The marks were a language written on skin, readable to every member of the culture. The headhunters are long gone. Wangod kept tattooing. She tattooed the last warriors, then their children, then tourists who flew to Manila and hiked for hours up a mountain just to sit with her for 5 minutes. In 2023, at 106 years old, she appeared on the cover of Vogue Philippines, the oldest person in the entire global history of the magazine to appear on any cover anywhere. The Philippine Air Force sent a Black Hawk helicopter to fly her to Manila so the president could personally give her the country's highest civilian honor. She has no children, but is training 2 grandnieces in the physical technique. What may not survive is the chanting, the ritual songs, the fortune-telling, the spiritual meaning of specific patterns. Filipino anthropologists say that dimension of batok is not transferable outside the Kalinga people themselves. The tattoo as craft may survive. The tattoo as ceremony is stored in one 107-year-old woman in a mountain village, and the clock is running. The last speaker of a language, writing its dictionary alone from memory. Marie Wilcox is the last fluent speaker of Wukchumni, the language of her Native American tribe from California's San Joaquin Valley. Not one of the last speakers. The last, the only living person who holds this language in complete form. Wukchumni was never written down. No books, no recordings, no archive. It existed entirely in spoken transmission, passed parent to child for thousands of years. And then the chain broke. English took over. The language retreated into fewer and fewer mouths until it reached one. So Marie Wilcox sat down and started writing a dictionary, alone, pulling words from memory she hadn't used in decades because there has been no one to speak with. Words for things that no longer exist. Grammar with no English equivalent. It took her 7 years to produce a first draft. She is still refining it, adding audio recordings of herself speaking so the sounds survive alongside the text. Think about what is actually happening here. One woman in California is the only human alive who can have a thought in a particular language, dream in it, reach for its words instinctively when something needs to be said precisely. Every other person who ever thought in Wukchumni is dead. When Marie dies, the last living mind containing this language will close. What will remain is a dictionary and some recordings, a fossil of a language. She knows this. She is writing as fast as she can. 5. The knowledge that's dying, one instrument at a time. This last one is different because it's not one person. It's a type of knowledge, and it's disappearing not all at once, but one decision at a time in workshops across Europe and America that most people will never hear about. There are historical keyboard instruments, certain clavichords and fortepianos built in the 16th and 17th centuries, sitting in museums right now that nobody can make sound the way they were built to sound. Not because the music is lost. The music exists. The notation exists. Scholars can read it perfectly. The problem is the feel, the specific responsiveness under a player's fingers, the way the keys waited and responded, that composers like Bach wrote their music to exploit. That feel was set by craftsmen who spent their entire careers learning to hear something no written specification could capture. It lived in their ears and their hands and nowhere else. Restorers today can copy the physical structure of these instruments exactly. What they cannot replicate is the 1,000 judgment calls made during a restoration, moments where you make a decision that comes from years of handling these things, that you couldn't explain to a student if you tried. The knowledge isn't vanishing in a single event. There's no obituary, no announcement. It's degrading generation by generation, like a photocopy of a photocopy. Each restoration that gets it slightly wrong becomes the reference for the next restorer, who gets it slightly more wrong. The music is there. The instruments are there. What is slowly leaving the world is the knowledge of how to make them speak the way their builders intended, and almost nobody outside a small circle of specialists knows it's happening. What every person on this list has in common: every single one of them is holding something that took generations to build. Kiara Vigo is carrying 28 generations of women who dove before her. Wang Ode is carrying hundreds of years of warrior culture in her hands. Marie Wilcox is carrying a language her people have spoken since before the United States existed. Achim Leisner is carrying a lifetime of calibration in his fingertips. None of them got here through a shortcut. They just kept doing one thing for a long time, with everything they had. And here is the real point of this video. For every person on this list who knows their knowledge is endangered and is trying to pass it on, there are dozens more who don't know anyone is watching, who have no apprentice, who have never been asked to teach, and who will take everything they know with them when they go. We don't have a system for this. No institution tracks the last practitioner of every skill. Nobody is knocking on those doors. The knowledge just ends, quietly, with no announcement, and the world gets a little smaller in a way that most people never notice, until someone makes a video about it. So share this one, because the first step to not losing something is knowing it exists. Which of these people would you travel to meet? Tell me in the comments. Subscribe, new story every week, all of them this worth knowing. See you next time.